welcome back. I'm Jenica, for those of you who haven't been watching me yet, but now you should be. We are here at the Utah International Film Festival, and with us now is Ashton.
Hi. I don't know if I need to be...
You can look here.
I'll look here
at me.
and not know what to do with my hands.
You can look at me. So Ashton is here with us you're from California? You're from LA?
No, I'm from here. I'm from Syracuse, if you've ever been at Antelope Island.
Yes, Syracuse, Antelope Island.
The worst place for mosquitoes.
So many bugs. And Ashton, you're here to talk about your film that is in the festival.
Yes.
And tell us more about the film, the title, just tell us everything.
Okay, let me see.
Let's start with the title.
Yeah, Measure of Creation.
Measure of Creation is the film.
Which...
Actually, Warren did tell me that before, but I'm asking you
No, yeah.
Measure of Creation.
It's funny. God, I always struggle talking about the film because it's like, people don't want to hear about this.
But I'm
not my inner demons.
Your daughter, right?
It does. So I actually am excited about talking about this one because it's less of my fabrication and dialing everything in. When you're on a set and it's like, oh, I'm going to dial this in perfect and everything's going to be orchestrated, just feel really tight knit and this is how I wanted it. And with this project, it was, there's some orchestration. You have to have a plan, but it changed so much and it involved my 7-year-old. And she's when we did it, she had just lost all of her teeth. So she's just this little toothless wonder. And it was, just tell me when you're like, okay, time's up. But it was January or February of last year. And creating for living is awesome. I don't want to ever complain about being able to create for living. But you do it for a while for other people, which is what you're signing up to do. You kind of go, what am I doing? I'm kind of getting in this rote. Okay, this is what they want to hear. This is what they want to see. This is how we'll do it. And you need to have something that you just, at least for me, I have to have something that I create and I'm genuinely proud of at least once a year. Like that would just be awesome. And so I was like, maybe I could do something kind of light, run and gun, something fun. And so I sat down with my daughter and I was like, hey, I'm just going to record a little journal and just ask her about what she likes. No crazy direction. I was kind of just thinking maybe I could make something out of this. And I kind of had this idea. I was like, I'm going to ask her about the meaning of life, right? Like the ultimate artistic, tell me. And I was really hoping she'd say something profound, that's like, wow, that's just,
out of the mouths of babes comes such incredible wisdom.
So like, there it is, the golden. And when she was done, I was like, well, that sucks, like not, but like, wow, okay, that was just fun.
Who answered this? A 7-year-old?
It sucks. Come on. And then
feed her some lines.
Yeah, I was like, say this. Yeah, seriously, feed her. Say it a little bit more emotional. But then I listened to it, I think it was like a month later.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously it's my child, so I get choked up listening to it because of what she said. And I'm just like, well, that's just because she's my daughter. It's hard to delineate. It's kind of like when you make I think we've all made some kind of vacation recap for our family because we're in film. They're like, you can do this. It's like, oh, hell. And your family loves it. They're like, you're such a great, filmmaker. It's like,
you go show it to a friend and it's like, cool.
They're like, nice, dude. Yeah, slap a Coldplay track onto a bunch of photographs at the beach. It's like, you're an artist.
Yeah.
So there's like that part where it's like, okay, the family loves it because it's their family. It's your family.
It's sentimental for specific reasons.
Yes.
Personal, yeah.
And so I was trying to decide, is this something is just because it's my daughter or is this something to be said? And I was like, this is something to be said. And so that's where it started.
That is beautiful. So, and I do just want to insert here the comment about, I love that you phrased it that way too, right? Like, is this something to be said? Because I think oftentimes as creatives, we're stuck behind a lot of barriers. Some are self-imposed and some are imposed by the nature of the work we do.
Yeah.
And I think that, and something that I think is a theme running through a lot of the filmmakers here that we're interviewing is that the intimate, human, authentic moments are the thing to be said, right?
Yes.
There's always something to be said and something to be heard and felt and experienced, because there's something so precious about our individual, unique human experience and the ways that is universally felt.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. It's beautiful. I mean, that's cool that you've had this experience to kind of talk with all these filmmakers, to hear, and be reminded of that, because I'll just share one quick thing. It was years ago, 7 years ago, when I had moved. We lived in Washington, D.C., and I just hated it.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, I guess this is 8 years old. 8 years ago. Doesn't matter. I'm old now.
Just for ages
Perspective. Okay.
yeah.
A long time ago. And I was like, I want to direct. I want to do all this for a living. You're studying on the technique and, listening. You're soaking up everything. And it wasn't until I talked to, a mentor of mine who'd been directing for years. And he's just like, it's about your voice and what you want to say. And it didn't really make sense to me at the time, because I was like, well, it's about the angle, and got the music, and it's the whole, and it's those things too, but only if it's layered on top of what are you trying to say.
Yeah.
And so,
and I've been finding, even in my own creative work recently, right, that every project sort of refines that understanding for you in some way, right? Like,
totally.
You've reached this project, you've made this great piece, and suddenly that message from years ago comes back to you. You have a new understanding of that idea.
Yes.
Like, oh, this is teaching me
I've heard
what I want to say.
But it's like, yeah, now it's sinking in. Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly beautiful and or powerful. So awesome.
Very,
Okay.
Great start. Great. We're sounding good.
So tell us more about the project. And so it kind of, the genesis sounds like it came from your daughter in this beautiful kind of little
impromptu journal thing.
And then how did it develop further? And
well, as most directors, like, sweet, now stop being authentic. Now we're going to make it perfect. I'm
going to make it real.
Now it's going to make it. And so I was like, okay. I created this script, because she didn't necessarily say everything in that exact order in how I interviewed her. So I went through, created a timeline, a story, an arc of something. And that February, my grandpa had passed away, and she hadn't experienced death. And it was like, how do we prepare her for this? Like, I don't know. How do you prepare anyone? And people react so differently. That's like, how does a child see this? They're gone, but it's okay. But is it okay? So much. And so she actually brings that up in the audio herself. She brought up Grandpa, even though I edited out my asking her about Grandpa, because it was her who brought it up originally, and just because it was on her mind. And anyway, it was just, I was like, tell me about it. And it was like, it was sad, but she was also okay. And there's still so much of the film that's like, I can't tell you the answer, which I think is the beautiful part for me, which is why I actually enjoy it. There's so many things that I make, it's like, it's the worst. And this, I was just like, I loved it. Yeah. And it was because of her. Anyway, taking a step back, I lined up the script, so to speak, on a timeline. So it's like, okay, this is the natural progression. And then I just started lining up, showing or illustrating these joyful experiences. Because the whole first bit is just like, what do you love? What makes you happy for a kid? And it was like, ice cream. I know.
It's so cute.
It's so simple.
It's so beautiful.
And it's like, we all, especially as filmmakers, I know I suffer from this. I want to sound really sharp. I want to sound good. I want to sound put together. And it's like, what do you really like? It's like, dude,
brownies.
Brownie?
Screen. Well, and I
Sure.
think there's something so resonant too, just as adults living in a world where I think we talk about this a lot, like, you lose the age of innocence, you like move out of, you grow into sophistication and a world of language and rules and systems that then teach you how to behave. But
Yes.
to go back to what is so
So
beautifully
simple.
and
Yes.
human is such a
Yeah.
great reminder.
It was. And it was like, it's funny. Like hearing it and realize like this, I got excited about it. So that's when I was like, I'm just gonna capture this and try to get it done in a month. And so we start capturing. I bring on a good friend, cinematographer. His name's Carter Fawcett.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to figure out a couple shots. And after working with him, he's super talented. It was just like, this is just so much work. And it's taking away a little bit of this, I don't want to say intimacy because it's just the two of us, and then my daughter. So it wasn't like it's this big crew at all.
Sure.
But it was just kind of like, now it's a performance a little bit for
not
her.
as much authentic off the cuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's sharp for her age. So she kind of was like, okay, things are different. What do you expect from me, Dad? Like what, And so I was like, okay, I have to kind of change this approach a little bit. If it were someone else's child, it wouldn't, but it's like, I want it to feel...
It's your kid.
Yeah, it was my kid. So I was like, okay. So then I started shooting it myself, and I'm a huge fan of just, I mean, we all love cinematography. Beautiful, inspiring cinematography. And so I am not a cinematographer, and I'm so reminded of it every time I look at my stuff. It's like, oh, God, and I can just hear the room of all my cinematographer buddies going, that's not, you should have done, what are you doing?
Here's where the light should have been.
Yeah, I sit there, what is he doing?
Angle different, yeah.
And so I just had to let it go, and I was really wanting to find some glass that would accentuate the story. And I ended up using these lenses called Petzval lenses, really unique lenses.
Okay.
If you ever seen it, they look gold.
Okay.
They're made out of brass, and the aperture is this funny set of keys. So it's not an adjustable, at least not the rehoused ones. So there's some rehoused ones at Enigma, but the first one that I used were just these little keys that you'd stick in. It was the aperture. So anyway,
wow,
it was a unique experience, and the lenses have this extreme warping artifact. I'm doing a poor job of explaining, but just this warping that happens around the edges. So your subject is extremely vignetted, visually, not even just from fading or anything like that, but it's just like very simple. And we shot 4:3, just because I'm like, their eyes haven't seen the world yet. It's like a smaller field of vision for a child, and it's almost better in so many ways, right? Then it's like, man, you have this gorgeous Panavision
beautiful allegory of how a child exists in their world.
Yes.
Okay, that's
and it's simple, and there's not a lot of distractions. And anyway, that was a really rewarding. That was kind of like step 2. I was like, what's the lensing of this? What's the feeling of it? Because it was joy. 90% of it is just like, what brings you joy? So I wanted to kind of pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
I love that. Yeah. That's so cool. I guess my last two quick questions for you. The first was the title, how you decided on the title for the film, and then just anything else you want to share with people who are about to see the film. Your kind of the thing that you love about it that maybe people wouldn't know just by watching it.
Let's see, the title. The title took a while. Title was like last. It's like, what do I call this?
Yeah.
I think for me, we love to measure everything. It's what shows us growth.
Yeah.
It's what makes us feel like, I'm doing better. Or oftentimes, unfortunately, it's like I'm better than someone else, or I'm not there, I'm here.
Yeah, just the notion of measuring in general, right?
Just in
How
general.
much we do that.
Yes.
And then tying in with this joy that you mentioned that is so authentic and natural.
Yeah.
It was captured.
You ignore all that. Like, she is so unaware that she's not as smart as clever as talented as
Right. She's
every,
outside of that
other
world of
people.
comparison.
She doesn't see it.
It's beautiful.
And truly the only thing that in this deistic approach is like, what does any of that matter as long as you're finding joy in what you're doing? And we live with phones. I can compare myself all day to all these other talented people, and it's just like, oh, and it almost feels better when it's like, oh, you don't know. And anyway, that's where that was born.
It's beautiful.
And if I could say anything that would get people excited to see it, it's my daughter. She's awesome. Go see my...
Besides the fact that people should see it. Tell us anything for you about the film, the last word about it.
Last word about it. It's so hard to work with your kids.
How authentic.
Oh my goodness. It's so sad. I'm on the cutting room floor and it's just me not yelling, but just like being really, direct with her. Hey, do that. You stop, do it. And it's like,
Also your kid.
It's my kid, and so,
That's fun.
If anything, the thing I think it could bring to people is just a renewed perspective, if not just a reminder of joy and simplicity. I'm very naturally drawn to dramatic storytelling and, tragedy. It's just, right. It's just like, oh, everyone dies. It's like, yes, and so, yeah, war stories, man. But this shows loss still. And it's not just like, oh, this is also happy. There's still loss. But it's short and it's simple and it's sweet. And so, and it was...
I have to say, we need joy. Like, how do we understand how to live in spaces that are complicated and nuanced, and grief is such a part of living, and joy is interwoven in all of it. So I love that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thanks.
Thank you for being here, Ashton. It is amazing to talk to you. And for all of you watching, thank you for being here. We have more great filmmakers coming up, and stay tuned for more fun stuff from the Utah International Film Festival.